Bon matin, good morning. A
few moments ago, I met His Excellency the Governor General, and he has accepted my request to dissolve Parliament. Conformity to our commitment to hold elections in fixed dates, the next election, general election, will be conform to the law, and I have the intent to start campaign activities like it's already the case with the leaders of other parties. It's important that these campaigns are financed by the parties themselves and not by the taxpayers. It's appropriate also that Canadians have time to consider the choices before them, because those elections are an issue of leadership over important issues that touch us all, the economy and the safety of our country. This election will determine who will protect our economy in a period of continual economic instability and will ensure the future prosperity of Canada. The elections will determine who is best positioned to take tough decisions in order to ensure the safety of our country. The national election is not a popularity contest. On October 19, Canadians will make a serious choice between a concrete experience that has made its proofs or a dangerous approach that hasn't worked and has failed in other countries. As Canadians know, today the world economy remains uncertain and unstable. The debt crisis in Europe continues. China goes through important economic slowdown. The business and commercial betterment of the economy in the U.S. is slower than planned. And those events abroad have an impact here at home. Canada continues to have a good performance compared to other G7 countries, but we must remain concentrated and keep in the right direction. The management of our economy remains the first priority of our government. Our choices are prudent and our actions are disciplined. This is why our economy continues to grow, such as the job market for the last 6 years. The last budget has been balanced. Our social programs are protected, and we reduced income taxes of Canadians that work hard and offer new important benefits for families. It's not time for a risky plan that causes so much damage elsewhere in the world. And it's certainly not the time for income taxes that are raised and irresponsible expenses and permanent deficit. It's time to maintain the direction. It's time to stick to the plan. Those elections are also focused on our security, not only safety against the usual criminal behavior, but the greater and increasing threats of a more and more dangerous world. The rise of IS in the Middle East is not only creating an urgent crisis in this part of the world, but it's also feeding on world jihadism that represents a direct threat to our friends and allies and for us here in the country. Jihadist terrorists have already declared war to Canadians and to Canada. Last October, violent attacks have been committed here in our land. And in Europe, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia and the constant aggression continues to create some situations that lead to deficit or tough situations for future generations. Our government has taken some decisions to face those situations and given the tools to our police forces for them to ensure our security. We are part of the important international military coalition led by President Obama against the Islamic State. Every day, men and women of the Canadian Armed Force are our pride by fighting terrorists who wants to hurt us. Our government is in the first line in the international response against Russian aggression and the rights of democratic and peaceful nations like Ukraine to choose their own future. I'm proud today that Canada takes position on the international scene to defend the freedom, peace, and human dignity. It's not time for political rectitude, for inexperienced governance, or ideological refusal to act. It's time to face what is threatening us with moral clarity, strength, and determination. Here in Canada, we have the opportunity to live in the best country in the world. In less than 2 years, we will celebrate the 150th anniversary of the birth of Canada as a country, as a united country. And during this important time of our history, the Canadians will take a critical decision on the orientation of our countries, orientation with real consequences, decision on whom have the experience, have made its proof today to ensure the strength of our economy and the safety of our country. I will ask Canadians their support to continue to go with the solid management of the economy and take tough decisions that are necessary to protect the safety of our country. In the next weeks, I will meet Canadians all across the nation as we will present the next stages of our plan.
Once again, a few moments ago, I met with His Excellency the Governor General, and he has agreed to my request that Parliament be dissolved. In accordance with our commitment to a fixed election date, the next general election will be held as prescribed by law. As it is my intention to begin campaign-related activities, and it's also the case for the other party leaders, it's important that these campaigns be funded by the parties themselves rather than taxpayers. It's also appropriate that Canadians have the time to consider the alternatives before them, because this is an election about leadership on the big issues that affect us all, our economy and our nation's security. It's an election about who will protect our economy in a period of ongoing global instability and secure Canada's future prosperity. And it is an election about who is best equipped to make the tough calls to keep our country safe. A national election is not a popularity contest. On October the 19th, Canadians will make a serious choice between proven real-world experience and a dangerous approach that has failed before and is failing in other countries. Today, as Canadians know, the global economy remains uncertain and unstable. The debt crisis in Europe continues to unfold. China is experiencing a significant economic downturn. Economic recovery in the U.S. continues to be slower than anticipated. These events abroad are once again impacting us here at home. Canada has continued to perform well compared to other G7 countries, but we cannot forget our focus or lose our course. Managing our economy remains our government's top priority. Our choices have been prudent and our actions have been disciplined. As a result, our economy and our employment have grown steadily over 6 years. Our budget is balanced, our social programs have been preserved, and we have lowered taxes for hard-working Canadians and delivered significant new benefits directly to Canadian families. Now is not the time for the kind of risky economic schemes that are doing so much damage elsewhere in the world. Now is most certainly not the time for higher taxes, reckless spending, and permanent deficits. Now is the time to stay on track. Now is the time to stick to our plan. This election is also about security, not merely our security against the normal risks of criminal behavior, but our security against the growing threats of an increasingly dangerous world. The rise of the so-called Islamic State in the Middle East has done more than just create an urgent and horrific crisis in that part of the world. It has also fueled the violent global jihadist movement that poses a direct threat to our friends and allies and to us here at home. Jihadist terrorists have declared war on Canada and Canadians by name, and last October, violent attacks were carried out on our soil. Meanwhile, in Europe, Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine and ongoing military aggression continue to threaten the peace and stability won at great price by previous generations. Our government has taken decisive action in response to these threats. We've strengthened our legislation to give our security and law enforcement agencies the modern tools necessary to keep us safe. We are part of the broad international military coalition led by President Obama against the Islamic State. And day in and day out, the men and women of the Canadian Armed Forces do us proud by taking the fight to the terrorists who seek to harm us. And our government has been out front in the world's response against Russian aggression and for the right of peaceful and democratic countries like Ukraine to choose their own future. I'm proud that today Canada takes stands in the world in defense of freedom, peace, and human dignity. Now is not the time for political correctness, inexperienced governance, or an ideological unwillingness to act. Now is the time to face those who threaten us with moral clarity, strength, and resolve. We Canadians are truly blessed to live in the best country in the world. In less than 2 years, we will celebrate the 150th anniversary of Canada's birth as a united country. But before this significant moment in our history, Canadians will make a critical decision about the direction of our country, a decision with real consequences, a decision about who has the proven experience today to keep our economy strong and our country safe. I will be asking Canadians for their support to continue to deliver sound economic management and to take the difficult decisions necessary to protect our country's security. Over the coming weeks, I look forward to meeting Canadians from coast to coast to coast as we lay out the next steps in our plan.